Well, welcome to the Pursuit of Truth. This was from Thursday. I just want to show you this. I'll talk about it afterwards.
Sunrise. In just a moment, we will, of course, be taking you through the stories that we're after. But I want to turn to our top story, the situation, the ongoing situation in Sri Lanka. The US Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, says there's every indication that those Easter Sunday terror attacks in Sri Lanka were inspired by Islamic State. That appears to be the working assumption. Officials in Sri Lanka, however, they've admitted a major intelligence lapse when a warning from Indian intelligence was received earlier this month, but not properly shared. Joining us once again, we hope, from Colombo in Sri Lanka, is Priyatharshan Virarajan, who's the assistant editor of a Sri Lankan online news site. Hopefully we can hear each other this time. Very good morning to you. We are now 4 days on from those horrible, horrible scenes in which, when almost 400 people have lost their lives. How are the people of Colombo dealing with those events right on their doorstep?
After the civil war, about 10 years back, life in Sri Lanka returned to normal and the people are seated in the life is settled. The economy started improving, travel industry got the momentum, and the people are happy and joyful. Generally, Sri Lankan people are very happy to, lucky people, very enjoyable and ready to help attitude. By these recent incidents to terror attack, people are panicked and speechless. They never expected such a kind of brutal attack, which they never dreamed even. First, the people were shocked and could not believe what was going on. Everyone got into trance of fear and gone a dead silence. The mood of the people started changing shadow on their faces. Smiling and happiness vanished and could not control the feeling of theirs through their. They were transferred as something more to come, controlled to the movement, confined into doors.
Could you just give us then an idea of what I suspect will be quite considerable anger being expressed by the people in Colombo about these intelligence failures? The government, the Sri Lankan government, has been very straightforward. They have admitted major, fundamental flaws, that there was intelligence from the Indian government that was simply not acted on. How angry are people?
Yeah, the death total moved up to more than 350, with children about 445. The minds of the people become more and more tension and kind of severe. They are expecting now their normal route in life in hand become a standard still. There's no use of talking about the present situation, about the security measures taken up and the functions of armored forces and the police. They are doing their duty in utmost confidence and care, singing the safety of the people, then themselves, but personally itself, there was something went radically wrong before this incident. I was made to understand that a warning was issued by our neighbor country about this attack. Well, before on time targeting churches and hotels by the information they had received, but Sri Lankan higher authorities and taken lightly and thought it may be small attack.
Priyatharshan, well, we wish you and your fellow Sri Lankans well. Thank you so much for joining us on Sunrise this morning and giving us your view from Colombo.
Yeah.
I will come back because there's more I want to show. I don't want to make the same mistake he did in film. Here with the curtain, the light behind him. But this is why the media isn't trusted, because it was quite obvious that the Sri Lankan journalist, and it is always interesting when they have these incidents how they talk to other journalists with each other, who are just people who don't even gather information. They get their information from Reuters and this, that, and the other. So they're not specialists in anything, but they're specialists in talking about news. But you could see he was reading from a script. And I know some people will jump to the defense that, oh, his English may not have been great, so that's why he prepared a speech. But that, I mean, I'm just surprised that that wasn't even commented on. The journalist knows he's speaking to someone that's clearly reading a script. You can hear by the way he's speaking. You can also see by the eye movement he's reading either someone's got boards up for him. And then you got to ask, well, obviously then that's why there are these conspiracy theories, why people think that, I mean, like, is that the best person they could get to talk about this? Someone who had to read from a piece of paper about an event that he was present at in the same country at, that you had to write it down to get, it just smacks of like, wanting to get the official story, but just very, in a way that, in the Western world, that, they would know not to make that kind of mistake. But yeah, I know people are going to say, well, he had poor English, so that's why he had to have a script for himself to read out. But I just can't believe that the journalist, I mean, it just, to me, it undermines both the journalist on Sky News and Sky News itself. When we can all clearly see a man's reading a script of an event that happened and nothing's being questioned. It's not even mentioned, even if they just wanted to put it out of people's mind not to have conspiratorial theories. And then they wonder why we don't believe anymore or trust institutions such as Sky News and the media. And this leads on to the next story that they go on to, and I'll show you this as well. Sorry for the mess we're moving.
I just want to bring a little bit of breaking news reaching us from the organisation Extinction Rebellion. Of course, today was the day at which we were told that their protest in London was coming to an end. They've released a statement suggesting that they're currently blocking the entrance to the London Stock Exchange. We haven't got confirmation of that from other sources aside from Extinction Rebellion themselves, but we will endeavour to check that and get more details on that just as soon as possible. But with other stuff to talk about this morning, and we would love it if you told us your views on the stories using the hashtag Sunrise. As we said before the break, though, first and foremost, this ticking time bomb, according to the head of the NHS, created by parents refusing to give children their measles vaccination. Take us through the figures, because they alone are pretty staggering.
Yeah, they are stark, and it's not just this country as well, it's all around the world. They're seeing a kind of a revival, unfortunately, in the measles epidemic. But look at the numbers for the UK. In 2017, there were 259 reported cases of measles in England. Just a year later, look at that, in 2018, that figure rose to 966. Extraordinary jump, isn't it, in just 12 months. Worldwide, UNICEF's analysis showed an estimated 169 million children missed out on the first dose of measles between 2010 and 2017. Fair enough, I've just been looking on social media, and it's difficult because for every doctor and every health official saying get your child vaccinated, there's all this other information saying don't do it because of links to autism, links to seizures, and it's very difficult for a parent to decide.
Yeah, but let's be 100% honest here. Every single doctor will tell you that vaccination is the right thing to do. Every single medical professional, every single bit of empirical research that has been done on this suggests that her vaccination is the only way to prevent these diseases. You look back, it was Andrew Wakefield, of course, who first made that link between MMR and
he was a doctor,
autism.
right?
He was, now struck off by the GMC, and for good reason, frankly. This is a story that's rather close to my heart, though, that's coming up next. We're going to find out about Bond today.
Is it you?
It's not.
There you go, yeah? That's this journalist has got no integrity, really. The most exciting story that he's talking about isn't about the House of Children, isn't about an alleged terrorism event, but it's about a film, James Bond. Look how excited he got about that. But the fact is that how it's gatekept, the doctor that suggested there was a link between MMR and autism, he's been struck off, and that's for the right reasons. And he gets so happy about that. And the fact that, let's talk about the figures, because the figures alone say, so what they got was some figures from UNICEF, and I don't know how UNICEF got these figures, but these figures that they've got, first of all, everyone knows about lies, damn lies, and statistics. We all know about that, right? We all do know that statistics can be massaged. We know statistics can be misleading in the sense that they showed 2 years and they showed an increase. of how many cases of measles had been. But this could be, were those singled down to people who didn't have the vaccination? What did they even check that part of it? Or even if it wasn't, could it also be due to the growth of the nation? How many more people were there in 2018 than there were 2017? If there was, say, a 1% increase in children between those 2 years, that might explain for that amount of extra people that had measles. Maybe they got measles before their vaccination. The thing is as well, I think it must have been in the previous. Oops, sorry, let me hold this properly. In the previous bit, he mentioned about a link, that it can cause fatalities, death, and etc. I don't know if it was in the beginning of this. I think it was, but the fact is, he never actually. Well, anyway, it doesn't matter. You can believe me that he did say something like that. But yeah, here's measles vaccination. Maybe it's worth hearing it. Well, the first they talk about food banks. Let's go to this then.
Going to get busier. And the Brady Sky News.
This was before.
The head of the NHS says a public health time bomb is being created by
Time
parents who refuse to get their children vaccinated. Figures published today show that more than 500,000 children in the UK have not received the injection to protect them against measles over the last 8 years. The United Nations says more and more youngsters are being left unprotected against a disease which can cause death and disability. The NHS believes that many parents are refusing the vaccine because of inaccurate messages on social media.
Just the last year, 100,000 people have died from measles. With children, many of them died unnecessarily because they should have been immunised, and that's something we need to correct, and that's something UNICEF's hoping today we start to correct by getting the right information out.
A senior Iranian diplomat.
Right, so he did actually give a figure there of how many people worldwide apparently died due to measles. The problem is I don't see those stats. I'm meant to believe UNICEF. I don't know exactly UNICEF's record on these things, but I don't know how. That was the other thing I was going to talk about is, let's just talk about the UK, yeah? If they're going to do a story about this in the UK, they're going to say that. Then let's have a look at the data. Let's see, okay, how many people didn't get vaccinated for measles because they didn't believe in the vaccinations? How many people out of those actually caught measles? Because it wouldn't have been all of them, would it? They're saying 500,000 and only 900 cases this last year. Then you've got to ask, okay, where did you get this data from? Because unless I'm mistaken, the sound is making funny noises. Unless I'm mistaken, oops, I just pressed something with my finger. I hope that didn't do anything. Our medical information is confidential, isn't it? So how did UNICEF get their hands on UK data? Are the like when you go to your GP and if say you refuse to give your child a vaccination, what is the process? Do they write something down on your medical record? I assume they do. They would probably write down measles injection refused, maybe the reason why. So is that data then shared with UNICEF or with the government agency? I didn't think it was allowed, is it? Have we given permission for that? So how, because I don't believe they are getting the information from our medical records. So where are they getting the data from? Which they don't, obviously, when they come out with a lot of these statistics, they never give where they get the data from. And the journalists don't even care. They just believe. They just say, oh, UNICEF, they're a trusted charity. What do the UNICEF do? They're part of the United Nations, aren't they? All these charities that are getting money and have lasted years and years and years, and the same problems are still here. The problem is, as you know, I don't, when it comes to medical things, I am, on the fence with those things because, I'm not a medical person, I'm not trained. I'm not here to give, to I don't know which is right or not. I have given my children the vaccinations, and I have taken vaccinations when I go to South Africa. I've mentioned that previously. and that's part of the problem because I know now, well, my wife was given vaccinations for a country that she's lived in for years and never needed to them. But just because we live here, we have to take them. But the people we go to stay with are not given those vaccinations, those boosters, and nothing happens. So I don't know. I mean, they're also, like I mentioned before, some of these diseases, I'm sure the chances of getting them are so minuscule. But the fact is also, like, how many people have died of measles in 2017, 2018? How many died? Did anyone die of measles? Because they say people could die, and I know the UNICEF mentioned people died. I don't know what countries they died from. They may have died from other things that have been attributed to measles. I mean, I don't know how good the data that they collected around the world has been. But I don't like it when they start with a UK story and then they stick it to a world one, because they don't have the data for the UK. If we're going to talk about this, let's talk about the UK data. How many people died of measles and also weren't vaccinated or had complications? Because it depends how many it is, isn't it? To whether it's a ticking time bomb. And then I know there was another bit, it must have been later on, where they were talking about it's a danger to people with immune suppression and diseases like that, which is not really, because if they're taking the vaccination, then even if measles is being caught by the people who don't take the vaccination, it's only going to affect them because you've taken the measles vaccination. Unless now you're saying that measles will be able to, is one of these kind of strains where, because it becomes prevalent, it'll be able to adapt and change and the vaccination won't work. That kind of story that I like to peddle. But this is the problem, you see. You're asking us to believe in these things and obviously most people get their information from the television, especially from news. You're asking us to believe these things, but there you saw that how are we meant to believe a journalist that told us this story? That first, there's no real fact checking, there's no real data given to us. It's just, believe this. And there's no figures put up on the screen so we can discern for ourselves whether how it's collected and what's collected. That kind of is not even in existence when we're told these stories. So we're meant to just believe. And then you've got a man that doesn't question someone that's reading off a script when you're talking about a terror event, knowing what people have said about 9/11, about Sandy Hook, and about all these types of things, and fake actors and all that kind of stuff. And that's not even brought into the equation. You're just meant to believe. And then he's so excited about James Bond, a fucking movie. A movie. He's a news broadcaster where there's shit happening in the world all over the place, if you believe these events taking place. He's talking about 359 people, including children, that died, allegedly. Yeah? Or that did. They died. And you're talking about people that may be dying of diseases like measles, yeah? But you're excited about James fucking Bond. Get a grip, yeah? Have some integrity. I mean, and the thing is also, like, okay, UNICEF are going to worry about measles, which 900 people, yeah? What about all the people fucking starving in the world all over the place because of the system that we're living in? What about all them? What about all the homeless people? What about the shit situation that people find themselves in, especially the non-affluent countries, because of Western nations and their involvement in their countries to do with money and business and commerce? What about all that? Why isn't that on the news? Because more people are probably dying because of that than these social media. What they're worried about is belief. Your belief. Your belief in the media is being corrupted by social media. People who are coming on here and saying things that are different to what they want you to believe. That's what they're really worried about. They're not worried about the people dying, because if they're worrying about the people dying, you'd be worrying about the people starving all the time, everywhere. Those people. You wouldn't have time for fucking James Bond. But what you're worrying about is your ability to ingrain into us what we should think and our beliefs. Well, we shouldn't have any beliefs. It should only be about knowledge. Anyway, take care, take it easy, God bless and peace. Now I'm going to have to awkwardly turn the camera around to switch off, which is very unprofessional, but it doesn't care really, does it?